I grew up believing that love was synonymous with sacrifice, that a good woman was the one who understood, forgave, endured. In my family, talking about pain was forbidden. Complaining was frowned upon. Showing sadness, a sign of weakness. So when I met Daniel, I carried that old script within me, and he seemed like the perfect character for a storyline I didn't even know I was following. We met at a conference in my field. He was one of the speakers, confident, articulate, with a presence that filled the room. When he noticed me, I was surprised. There were so many people there, more beautiful, more interesting, but he chose me. He approached me with a gentle and cultured manner, which contrasted with the superficial chatter around us. "You seem like someone who doesn't feel like they belong here," he said, smiling. And that was exactly how I felt. And he saw it. That's when the game began. That night, we talked for hours. He seemed interested in everything I said, my ideas, my projects, even my old traumas. He didn't shy away from deep topics. On the contrary, he invited them. And that captivated me. I had never met anyone like him. At first, he was so attentive it felt unreal. He sent long, thoughtful messages, called at night just to ask about my day. He talked about books, traumas, spirituality, and he said with unsettling frequency, "I've never met anyone like you." Little by little, he made me feel special, but he also tested me. In the second week, he said I talked too much. "You don't need to explain everything. Sometimes silence says more." I started watching myself. Then he said he found my makeup odd. "You're naturally beautiful. You don't need all that." The following week, I went out with no makeup. Then he commented that my laugh was too loud. "It's lovely, but a bit much." I started laughing with my hand over my mouth to muffle the sound. They were tiny prunings, disguised as care. To others, he was a caring, attentive boyfriend. But inside, I was starting to feel a discomfort I couldn't name. The first time he made me feel insecure was during a simple conversation about a restaurant I wanted to go to. "This place is amazing, Daniel. The food, the vibe. You really like places like that? So mainstream. I expected something more authentic from you." I gave a nervous laugh. "It's just a restaurant, Daniel. I thought it was cool." "No, it's fine. You can like basic things too. I just thought your taste was more refined." That was it. He belittled me with a smile, questioned my choices as if helping me grow, made me doubt every decision, every preference, every detail of who I was. But I wanted to please. I wanted to be refined, authentic, smart like him. So I began shaping my tastes, my hobbies, my speech, just so I wouldn't disappoint him. I remember once mentioning my therapist. I said I was enjoying the process, that it was doing me good. He frowned. "You talk so much about self-awareness, but you still need a therapist? Why? You think it doesn't make sense?" "Not exactly. I just think, if you truly trusted me, maybe you wouldn't need her anymore." From then on, I started skipping sessions, and soon after, I quit altogether. I convinced myself I was fine, that it was too much, that he was right. Those were the first signs, but I didn't see them as signs. I saw them as tough love, smart love, love that wanted the best for me, even if it meant losing myself. There was also the incident at my sister's birthday party. I had gotten dressed with care, wore a dress she had given me herself. When I came out of the room, ready to leave, he looked at me for 2 seconds and asked, "Is that dress to please your sister or to get attention at the party?" I froze. "What do you mean?" "She gave me this dress, Daniel." "You know what I mean. I just hope you respect yourself more than you realize." I went back upstairs, changed clothes, arrived late, and lied to my sister, saying I had changed my mind. He controlled everything without raising his voice, with short, sharp phrases, with insinuations that left me confused, insecure, lost. And when I cried, He withdrew. "You're making a mountain out of a molehill. I can't talk to someone so emotional. Go breathe. We'll talk later." I felt crazy. Every day I asked myself, am I overreacting? Is it me who's the problem? But he kept saying he loved me, that he had never connected with anyone like me, that I was the only woman he saw a future with. That's what held me. The praise, the affection, the promise. And then, the punishment, the silence, the confusion. The cycle was so perfectly built. I couldn't see a way out. I just wanted things to go back to how they were in the beginning. I just wanted to be enough, to be admired like before. But that look never came back, and I lost myself trying to find it. I remember exactly the first time he punished me with silence. It was over something silly. I laughed at a comment a friend made during dinner. It wasn't about me or him, but Daniel got weird. At the time, he said nothing, just gave that cold little smile, pretending everything was fine. But as we left the restaurant, he asked, "Do you want attention from other men? Is that it?" I didn't even understand. "What are you talking about, Daniel?" "You know, don't play innocent." I went silent. The whole ride home, he didn't say a word. Not the next day either. He ignored me as if I had committed a crime. Didn't answer my calls, didn't reply to messages, and when he finally spoke to me, he said, "Maybe we need a break. I try so hard to be with you, and I don't feel it's mutual." Mutual? I spent my days trying to be the woman he idealized. I cut off conversations with friends, avoided social media, changed the tone of my voice, controlled my reactions, and still, I was never enough. That break lasted 2 days. 2 days where I didn't eat, didn't sleep, could barely breathe. The fear of losing him was physical, painful. I was trapped, completely dependent. When he reached out again, he came with an emotional, almost poetic speech. "You push my limits because I love you deeply. And when love is like this, the pain is stronger, but I can't stay away from you." And so, I apologized. Apologized for laughing, for talking too much, for being insensitive. That was the first of many times I apologized for things I didn't even understand. And him, always calm, always in control. I was the one crying, explaining, sinking in guilt. Gradually, this became a pattern. When I spoke up, he withdrew. When I gave in, he got closer. He taught me to swallow everything, to never raise my voice, to never question, to never oppose him. One day, we were at his mother's house. She said I was too emotional, and he just laughed and said, "She's a hurricane disguised as a breeze." Everyone laughed, except me. That stuck in my head for days, because that's what he really thought, that I was too intense, too strong when he wanted weakness, too weak when he wanted strength. He never said he hated me, but treated me like I was a walking mistake. Another episode is burned into my memory, a small, silly argument about a trip. I wanted to go somewhere. He wanted another place. I explained my reasons. He pretended to listen, and then said, "You're just like your mom, always wanting things your way, but unable to handle the consequences." That shattered me. He knew how hard my relationship with my mother was. He knew the pain I carried from childhood, and he used it against me. That's what he did. Stored my vulnerabilities as ammunition, and when he needed to hurt me, he fired without mercy. But the world didn't see that. The world saw an articulate, cultured, intelligent man. A man who sometimes brought me flowers, who praised me in public, who said he wanted to marry me. One time, a friend asked me, "Do you really think he's abusive? He treats you so well when we're around." Yes, he knew how to act. In front of others, he was perfect. In private, he was cruel, with words calculated to wound. And me? I no longer knew who I was. I started having anxiety attacks. My hands would sweat when he called. My heart would race every time I had to say something he might not like. I lived in tension, like walking on eggshells all the time. But then he'd show up, with affection, with phrases like, "You're the love of my life. No one will ever understand you like I do. I'm just trying to help you grow." And I held on to that, like clinging to a thread of hope in a raging sea. I started to doubt myself. Was I really overreacting? Maybe he just wanted the best for me and I was being ungrateful. That's when he began shaping me more deeply. He told me how to dress, criticized my voice, corrected my writing, dismissed my professional achievements. "You only got that job because you're a woman. Don't fool yourself. You speak well, but deep down, you don't know what you're talking about. You're smart for someone emotionally unstable." I started staying quiet in meetings, turning down promotions, feeling ashamed of my own capabilities. I became a shadow of myself, someone who only existed if he approved. But on the outside, people would say, "You two are such a great match. He's so calm, so centered. You're lucky." Lucky. No one saw when he turned away to avoid answering me, when he spent 2 days without speaking to me because he was disappointed, when he said with coldness, "You're only attractive when you're silent." And I believed it, because he destroyed me slowly, with finesse, with precision, with the care of someone who knows exactly what they're doing. And still, everything was drama. At least that's what people told me when I tried to explain. But he never hit you, right? Good men are hard to find. You should be thankful. You just need to learn to deal with his way. They didn't know. They didn't see. But I was dying. Inside. Breaking up with Daniel wasn't a heroic act. It was the final gasp of a suffocated soul. I left that place with swollen eyes, nerves on edge, and a shattered mind. The decision didn't come from a big fight. There were no scandals, no police, no shouting. There was just a night. A night when, after another entire day of silence, he looked at me and said, "You embarrass me. You embarrass me when you speak, when you take a stance, when you try to act like you know something." It was cold, cruel, unnecessary. But in that moment, something broke inside me. The last bit of hope that love still lived there turned to dust. I left the apartment with trembling hands and a spinning head. I took nothing but my purse. Not even my dignity was intact. I went to my mother's house. What I expected was a hug. What I got was a question. "Did you fight with him again?" "Mom, I ended it. It's over." "Are you sure? He always seemed so good to you." "Good to me?" My mom only saw what he let slip, surface-level kindness, gifts on holidays, polite conversation over Sunday lunch. She never saw the deafening silences, the venomous sarcasm, the psychological control. I tried to explain. I talked about gaslighting, about manipulation, about how he made me question my own sanity. But she looked at me with a blank expression and said, "You have a tendency to dramatize things, sweetheart." That shattered me, because it was my mother, the woman who watched me be born, watched me be destroyed, and still didn't believe me. The following week, a friend called me. "Daniel reached out, said you guys broke up. He's devastated." I swallowed hard. "He's devastated?" "He said he did everything for you, that you're unstable, jealous, and he only wanted to help you." My throat tightened. "Do you believe him?" There was silence on the other end. Then she said, "I don't know, girl. You've always been kind of intense, right? Maybe you just weren't compatible." Not compatible? This wasn't about compatibility. It was about survival. But the world doesn't understand that. The world wants proof, wants bruises, wants police reports, wants broken bones, All I had was a shattered heart, a crushed sense of self-worth, a fragmented mind. But no one sees that. I remember trying to open up to a coworker. We were in the break room and he noticed I looked off. He asked what was wrong. I gave a brief version, mentioned the breakup, the difficult relationship, tried to summarize it without seeming too dramatic. And he, after listening, gave a smirk and said, "Well, that's just relationships, right? Women want too much romance. Men are just more straightforward. You all overcomplicate everything." It made me sick. I felt like a zombie walking among the living, people who had never lived what I had, but still felt entitled to judge, to comment, to dismiss. Each thing I heard was another wound. But he never cheated, right? It's not like he hit you. You're making a boy. Problem out of nothing. Everyone goes through stuff like that. Move on. And the worst part, I started believing it. I questioned myself every single day. Was I wrong? Was I really that dramatic? Was I not as strong as I thought? So I stopped talking, avoided the topic, forced smiles in photos to prove I was moving on. Inside, I just wanted to disappear. People expected me to be happy, to be grateful. You're young, beautiful, smart. Life is just beginning. But inside, it felt like everything had already ended. Daniel still messaged me. Long, confusing texts. Sometimes he apologized, said he was in therapy. Other times he blamed me for everything, said I destroyed him, and, unbelievably, I still felt guilty. Guilty for hurting him. Guilty for not holding on longer. Guilty for bad-mouthing him when people asked why we ended. Because the cruelest part of narcissistic abuse is that even after you escape the control, the guilt still binds you. Meanwhile, he moved on. Got a new girlfriend. Posted quotes about toxic relationships as if he were the victim. Got likes, support, people saying he was amazing for surviving such an emotionally unstable woman. And me? I became the echo of a story no one wanted to hear. Many people think leaving an abusive relationship is the liberation. But what comes next is the desert. It's the silence, the absence, the void where there was once fear, yes, but also constant presence, a routine, a false sense of security. Daniel took everything from me. But the most painful part wasn't what he took. It was what he left inside me. His voice still echoed. In my thoughts, my decisions, my reflection in the mirror. He was still there, even when he wasn't. I'd wake up startled in the middle of the night, feeling like he was watching me. I caught myself repeating his phrases in my mind, as if they were mine. You're not that good. No one will put up with you for long. People only admire you until they talk to you. It took me a while to realize that wasn't my voice. It was his, still living inside me. And how could I rebuild anything if I no longer knew who I was? I started writing. At first, in secret, on scraps of paper, not to publish, not for anyone to read, just to try to hear my own soul. I wrote things that hurt. I miss myself. I'm afraid I'll never love again. I don't know what I like. I feel dirty for still thinking about him. I wish someone would say, "You're not crazy." I also started looking at myself in the mirror, not out of vanity, but like someone trying to recognize a long-lost face. At first, I saw nothing but exhaustion, a worn-out face, dull eyes, slumped shoulders. But one day, I remember it clearly, I looked at myself and said, "You survived." It was a whisper, but it was the first time my voice silenced his. I went back to therapy, at first almost mute. I went to the sessions just to listen, not to speak. Until one day, my therapist asked, "What do you feel When you remember who you were with him. And I answered, almost without thinking, shame. She stayed quiet. Then she said, that shame isn't yours, it's his. They just put it on your shoulders because they knew you'd carry it. That broke me. I cried for almost half an hour without stopping, as if I had held that cry in for years. Slowly, I began reclaiming small things. I listened to the music I used to like, wore the earrings he called too flashy, read the books he said were shallow, cooked my own way, with no one to impress. Every simple act was a victory. But not everyone understood this process. Some said, wow, still not over it? Come on, enough already, move on. You need to stop playing the victim. And I wanted to scream that this wasn't victimhood. It was rebuilding, it was trying, it was resistance. Because what no one tells you is that leaving an abusive relationship is starting everything from scratch. It's relearning how to breathe without fear, how to get dressed without insecurity, how to speak without apologizing, how to exist without needing permission. It's feeling guilty for being okay, afraid of being happy, tempted to go back, not out of love, but out of familiarity. It's living on high alert, even when there's no danger. One day, I went to the supermarket and heard a man with a voice like his. I froze. My body shut down. My hands trembled. It took me 10 minutes to calm down, leaning against the pharmacy wall, trying to breathe. These are the scars no one sees. And still, society expects us to move on, to stop talking about it, to smile, post a selfie, be grateful for the blessing and move on to the next. But I couldn't, because truthfully, I wasn't just mourning him. I was grieving the woman I had been, the one I could have become, the one I let die to please him, the one who let herself fade away in order to be loved. And it's a grief that comes in waves, sometimes silent, sometimes devastating. But it's also a necessary grief, because it's in that grief that I started to be born again. People love a happy ending. They expect that after leaving an abusive relationship, the woman becomes an unshakable warrior, full of self-love, ready to write a book and start a YouTube channel. That wasn't me. My liberation began quietly. It began in the middle of the night, lying on the bathroom floor, face swollen from crying, heart begging for help. I wasn't asking him to change anymore. I was asking God to get me out alive. That night, I didn't decide to leave, but I did decide to start seeing what was happening to me. I started reading other women's stories, like mirrors. I started watching videos, seeking help, even if in secret, even if in fear. Fear was my language. But slowly I learned a new one: courage. The courage to name the abuse. The courage to admit it wasn't love. The courage to understand that being dramatic was just a way to survive. Because the drama they saw in me was simply unheard pain, unacknowledged pain. Pain that screams when no one listens. They blamed me for leaving, called me ungrateful, crazy, dramatic. But none of those people were there when he looked at me with contempt. None of them heard the words he used to break me. You want to know what made me move forward? It was the desire to feel alive, whole, even if broken, even if at rock bottom. I left with nothing, just my tired body, shattered mind, and a phone in my hand. I slept on friends' couches, rented rooms, went to therapy with a swollen face from holding back tears. But little by little, I came back. I smiled again, listened to music again, walked the streets without fear of every step, ate again without a lump in my throat. And one day, I looked in the mirror and thought, I survived. Not like a movie heroine, but like a real woman, with wounds and scars, like someone who learned to rebuild herself from broken pieces. Today I tell my story because I know other women are living the same hell and are being called dramatic for it. And if you're one of them, I want to tell you, You're not crazy. You're not exaggerating. You are wounded, and your pain deserves respect. Don't stay silent for those who silenced you. Don't smile to please those who crushed you. Don't accept less than peace. Because what they call drama, we lived as hell. And now, it's time to walk out of it. If this story resonated with you, share it in the comments. Your voice might be exactly what another woman needs to hear to realize she's not alone. And if you know someone in an abusive relationship, don't minimize her pain. Don't call drama what might be her living hell. We survive when we meet others who've survived. And together, we heal. Subscribe to the channel. Here, your pain is taken seriously.